Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. One of my viewers wanted me to talk about being black in corporate America. And this is a subject I have touched on several times, and I'm going to talk about it once more because I believe a lot of black people need to know how this work environment is and how it works against the average everyday brother and sister. Now, when it comes down to the American corporate workplace, it's a hostile environment for black Americans. And because it's a hostile environment for black Americans, every black man or every black woman who works in corporate America needs to understand they are behind enemy lines. And because you're behind enemy lines, you need to understand before you even enter that corporate workplace that you are not welcome in that corporate workplace. Now, many of these corporate workplaces, they will put up signs talking about how it's all about equal opportunity and they're all about diversity and inclusion, but those are all lies. And those lies are told in order to make things appear like they're fair and make it look like there's no discrimination going on in order to appease the government, but behind the scenes there are efforts to made to keep black people out of these jobs, and the few that they do hire, they are actively making plans to get those black people out of those jobs because yes, passively they will present this whole equal opportunity and about diversity and inclusion to the public, but aggressively they will go out of their way to try to get whatever black employees out of the job that they hire. Because the only reason why they go out and hire your black workers is to make it appear symbolically like they're all about diversity and inclusion, but in actuality, they're all about making efforts to try to push out whatever black workers are working there and ensure that their workplace remains as white and non-black as possible because their whole idea of diversity is promoting white supremacy and keeping those white employees at the top. And once you understand that you are behind enemy lines in corporate America, you understand that your priorities are not trying to move up in that company because a lot of black Americans, a lot of them think that, oh, because I've got this corporate job, I can rest and relax, but you cannot rest and relax in corporate America. No, you cannot rest in corporate America because the black employee has a target on his back or her back when they enter into that workplace. And that's because you are behind enemy lines and most of your enemies are looking to eliminate you because they don't want to compete with you. Now, most of these people who are a part of corporate America, especially these whites and non-blacks, they don't want to compete with black Americans, and your very presence there represents the competition that they fear will overtake them because many of these whites and non-blacks, a lot of them are used to making their deals with their friends through nepotism, favoritism, and cronyism, and you, as a black American, represent the concept of merit and earning everything on your own. And that working and earning on your own means that these people cannot get by with their nepotism, favoritism, and cronyism, and they cannot get by with mediocre or subpar work. It means that they actually have to step up their game. And when they see a black person coming into a business arena, it means actual competition and not getting by having somebody do a favor for you or fulfilling some sort of covert contract where deals are implied and people are supposed to figure things out. No, when a black person enters into a workspace, it really puts all of these people on edge because they can no longer get away with doing the minimum. It means they have to actually put in effort, and that is the thing that makes many of these racists really start to be afraid, because many of these racists have never honed their skills. They have gotten their jobs through hookups, they've gotten their jobs through friends, and they've gotten favors done for each other. And when you, the black man or the black woman, come in, you are going to make them step up their game, and they don't want to step up their game. No, many of these whites and non-blacks want their world smooth, and they don't want to deal with any sort of conflicts, problems, or obstacles on the job, and they don't want to have to overcome hard challenges or go out here and really step their game up to go to a higher level. No, they have plateaued, and because they have plateaued, they don't want to rise to a higher standard. And when a black person comes in, this is what really has them filled with fear, because a lot of these people are out of shape and they're not ready to compete, but they want to make it look like they're all about competition, but they're not about competition at all. So these people work behind the scenes when they see a black person come into the workspace to try to get rid of that black person, because many of these people, they are mediocre and they just don't have the skills to compete, and they want to eliminate their competition. And because there's more of them than there are of you, you cannot come in here thinking you're going to stay for a couple of years or even a couple of months. You have to start making plans for what you want to do outside of the job, because there's a possibility that you may not have this job for long. And when you're a black man, especially a heterosexual black man in corporate America, you have to understand that being behind enemy lines, that your time at this job may not be that long. And this is why you have to develop a contingency for your future outside of that job, and you have to have plans for how you're going to survive outside of that job. So even though you have a job right now, you have to start making plans for if you get terminated by, one, developing your network of contacts in case you need to leave this job or you get let go from this job, and then two, you need to start developing your side hustle out as you're working on this job. Now, a side hustle is some small business venture you're working on the evenings or the weekends or the holidays, and that side business is going to be a secondary source of income that you have in addition to the primary source of income, which would be this corporate job. And what you want to do with the side hustle is have that going in the background, where you're going out here and you're making money with this whole revenue stream. And what you want that revenue stream to do is generate revenue for you in case this job gets lost. For example, examples of side hustles are things like getting a YouTube channel, if you can, or like myself, creating a business like the SJS Direct Publishing Imprint, which I created back in 2009. Or you want to go out here and get some other passive revenue streams. Like some people like to go out here and get cryptocurrencies, or you go out here and you do things like some guys, they go out here and they buy action figures and they sell them on eBay, or they sell comics on eBay. They have side hustles where they can go out here and make money out here behind the scenes if they have to on the evenings and the weekends. And that's a revenue stream that generates money, and it's one that can't be tampered with by some manager or some boss. It is a revenue stream that is working behind the scenes, making money for you. So what you want to do is get that side hustle established early on in case there's a problem with your job. Now, this was something I did myself when I was working at the City College of New York at their science library, and I thank God that I did that, because I lost that job in October of 2008 after starting in April. So I went out here and I knew that how these jobs were. So I understood I needed to start getting this side hustle put together. And that's what I said to myself, start doing research into starting to publish my own books and be able to get that going in case something goes wrong with this job. I have a passive revenue stream. And you want to have a passive revenue stream that is bringing money in for you. And it may take a little while for it to get some momentum, but it is money well spent. So you really want to invest in that and get that foundation going, because you want to start working on revenue streams and not be dependent on a salary, because these jobs really don't last that long. And many of these managers, they're looking to show the black person the door before everyone else. So you want to make sure you get that side hustle laid down in 90 to 180 days, and you get it start generating revenue for you by the end of the year if you don't have it already established. Now, in addition to that, what you want to do is start saving your money, because you're not expecting to stay on this job. Because when you're a black man or a black woman in corporate America, it doesn't matter how good you are on the job, because they don't really want you there because you are competition. Now, I've had jobs at Strive when I was working at AmeriCorps and at the City College of New York, and people said I did excellent work, but they still found ways to show me the door. I remember going to lunch with the vice president at Strive after doing excellent work and being praised on it and thinking I had a future at that company. And he took me to lunch to tell me he had no place for me in his organization. So when you're a black man in corporate America, you have to understand that there is no place for you, even though you have come in on the merits and done the work. They just don't want you there because you're black and you are representing competition. And they don't want to have black people who can compete in their companies. No, they don't want those type of people, because they already think they can do a better job of doing business than you. The only types of black people they want on their jobs in most cases are black bootlicks, and the only reason why the bootlick is there is because the bootlick is fitting a novelty or a fetish that satisfies the white bosses there. So usually they will keep several types of bootlicks on the job. One of them is what I call the workplace mangina, and they keep the workplace mangina there in order to be able to get gossip on other black workers, and because this guy licks a lot of boots and tells people what they want to hear. That's the main reason why they keep that guy around. And yes, he may be a pedigreed, Ivy League, well-educated black man, but the only reason why he's in that job is because he's out here and he knows how to lick boots and he knows how to lick butt. And that's the only reason why he's in the job, because he snitches on other black people and he makes every effort to sabotage other black people in the workplace, and he wants to aspire to be the H nice, and because he aspires to be the H nice, then all he wants to do is be on top as related to black people, and he makes it his job to be the gatekeeper who keeps other black people from rising to other positions, and he keeps other black people from coming up further in the job. This saboteur, what he will do is try to go out here and try to pretend to be your friend, and then what he's looking for is information so he can use against you. And if he can't get any information, this is the thing that frustrates him, because he needs information in order to go back to his white slave masters, and he needs that information in order to try to find a way to get you out of that job so he can feel comfortable about his place as their butler. Now, another type of bootlick that is allowed to stay in the workplace is this workplace minstrel. Now, this minstrel, all he does is entertain the white folks and the non-blacks by making all sorts of jokes and huckabucking and tap dancing for all of those white bosses. And because they are entertained by his humor and they are laughing at him, they keep him around so that they can feel better about themselves. Because as long as this black person is acting like somebody from the bottom, many of those white corporate and non-black corporate bosses, they feel comfortable at the top. And this is what this guy does in order to try to keep whatever job he has, but he is also sharpening his blade for any other black person on the job. And he's looking to get other black people out because, yes, he'll tell a lot of jokes to the white man, but he's got a big blazing sword out to cut any black person's throat and will explode in rage at those black people on the job and make efforts to try to get that black person out. Now, another predator black people have to watch out in corporate America for is the mammy. Now, the workplace mammy is somebody who is on the job and is extremely loyal to the white supremacists. Usually, these women are in their late 40s, early 50s, and even their 30s. And these women, they just go out of their way to dote and submit to these white men. And they go out here looking to gain the favor and approval of these white men on the job. And they'll buck dance and bootlick in front of these white men, even if they put on a pro-black facade. So you have to be very careful when you're dealing with these kinds of black females on the job, because that was one of the mistakes I made back in 2008 when I was working at City College. This female put on the face of being pro-black. She had the natural hair, she had the kente cloth, and then she was playing gospel music, which I didn't understand back then was diametrically opposed to being pro-black. But and whenever this white Jewish man who was the boss of the library would come around, she would start buck dancing and bootlicking for that white man. So that's somebody you have to watch out for because, one, this female is a gossip and will take whatever you say back to those white masters, and two, she is working behind the scenes to get you fired. So a lot of the mammies, they again want to be this age nice, and because they want to be this age nice, they will make efforts to try to get you out of the job, and they will look for the smallest of infractions to get you fired, or they will look to try to sabotage you by giving you work that is absolutely impossible to do in an effort to frustrate you, overwhelm you, or and try to make you resign because you are a disruption to their smooth world, and they want to be considered the H nice or the most valuable black person in the room. So that's one of the things that you have to look out for in your corporate America, because your corporate America, again, is not welcome to your average everyday brother and sister. It is a place where only bootlicks, brown nosers, and your manginas survive, and your mammies and your other assorted people like your Olivia Pope types, which is another type of individual, is allowed to thrive. Because this female, what she wants to do is sleep her way to the top by being the white person or the non-black person's side piece, and they get by trading their body in exchange for promotions and raises. And some of them don't even get promotions and raises. Some of them, they will just stay there to give the boss blowjobs in the office or in the bathroom or the broom closet. And they are just doing that in order to stay as part of this corporate plantation. But they really, again, are all the people who usually are on the job. And when they see an average, everyday, working class brother or sister just getting up, going to work, and trying to build and trying to take care of business, they make efforts to get those people out of the job. And that's why you cannot really, if you're a working class guy like me or any other brother out here, you can't make plans to stay in corporate America too long. And you're not going to stay there too long because people, again, are planning to get you out. And that's why your goal should not be, I'm going to stay at this job for 20 years or stay at this job for 10 years. No, with corporate America, black people have to have a plan for working on their side hustle and turning their side hustle into a business, because you're not going to, again, be at this job that long. So you have to stack as much money as you possibly can. And as you're stacking your money, you start working on whatever goal you want to do, and you use the job as a stepping stone to move towards wherever you want to go. For example, like say you're working in IT and computers, you go to this job and you'll go there and you'll save your money, and as you're saving your money, your goal is not to move up in that company. Your goal is to use this job's experience in order to reinforce new certifications you're trying to get. So example, let's say you're like me and you've got a CompTIA A+ certification. What you want to do is you go to this job, you'll work this job, you'll learn the ins and outs of PC repair and networks, and then as you're working and learning about PC repair and networks, you're then studying to take your Net Plus exam, you're studying to take your MCSE, you're studying for your security certification, and then after you get your certs, you then take those certs and then move on to another job where you start that whole process again of, I've got this goal I want to accomplish, I've got this goal I want to achieve, and this job is not a place where I'm investing anything in as related to anything. I'm just here to learn what I need to learn and then move myself forward. The same thing goes on. Let's say you're a chef or you've got culinary training. Let's say you come into a restaurant and you want to learn French cooking. You go there, you take the job possibly as the sous chef there or one of the line cooks there. You learn and master the techniques of whatever you're learning there as related to French cooking, and then you move on to the next restaurant. That's what most people do, because they don't sit there and think, oh, I'm going to stay at this restaurant for 5 to 10 years. Yeah, it might be a comfortable environment, but these people aren't comfortable with you. But your goal is not about trying to be comfortable in this place or trying to get comfortable to the point where I have a routine. No, you have to understand, again, you're behind enemy lines. And because you're behind enemy lines, you have to have a plan for where you want to take your career, because you cannot trust anybody in these companies as related to your career and your future. No, you have to take that into your own hands if you hope to have any sort of long-term success. So what you want to do, again, in the case of the skilled trade chef, is, yeah, I'm going to learn this French cooking and these French techniques from this chef, and then I'm going to go to another restaurant, learn some more French cooking and French techniques, or I may learn some Italian techniques, and then eventually I'm going to become a master and start creating my own types of recipes and eventually start laying out my plan for my own restaurant. The ultimate goal when you are a black person in corporate America should always be about trying to get towards the point where you have your own business, because you cannot rely on their business to take care of you, because their business is about white supremacy and their business is about elevating whites and non-blacks, and their business is not about economically empowering you, because that's the other issue a lot of black people in corporate America don't understand. Many of these companies, they really don't want to give you a job, because giving you a job means economic power for you. And the whole thing is, they don't like seeing, especially heterosexual black men with economic power, because a black man with economic power is someone who will go out here and they won't be a consumer like a black woman. No, they are going to be a producer, and eventually they're going to work towards creating tangible products that compete with their products, and they're going to start creating businesses, and those businesses are going to compete with their businesses. So what they want to do is cut that black man off at the knees before he can go and get started, and they don't want that black man getting that footing to start at their job, because that would be hiring their own competition. So they don't mind hiring your bootlicks, like your manginas, like your buck dancing minstrels, like your mammies, or your workplace Jezebels. They don't mind hiring those people because they are going to give whatever money back to these white companies, and these consumers, all they are thinking about is pleasing and appeasing their white masters. These people, spend most of their time being peacocks, wearing expensive designer clothes and chasing women on the job, white women on the job, if they are these manginas or these minstrels, or they're chasing white men. So there's a return on investment for those white people as related to those black employees. But as for the average everyday black man, they don't want to see the average everyday black man getting economic power. They don't want to see the average everyday black man generating economic wealth. And they don't want to see the average everyday black man going out here and empowering himself and doing things like having enough money to buy a home, having enough money to put into retirement, or having enough capital to go out here and work to start a whole business that employs other black people. That's something they don't really want to see as related to economics. They don't want to see a black person have that type of economic power. So that's why they try to find a way to get a black man, especially a heterosexual black man, out of a job in 6 months to a year. Because a black man, once he starts to build momentum, this is something that scares many of these people who like these white supremacists, these non-blacks, and even some of these black bootlegs, is seeing a black person gain economic momentum. Because once that black person starts to build economic momentum, they can start generating wealth. And once they start generating wealth, they can start focusing on political power and bringing tangibles back to the black community. And that's why corporate America makes every effort to try to keep black people out of corporate America. And if you do get that job miraculously, it's going to be all about survival, but don't expect to stay there that long, because it's not an environment that is welcoming black people. It is not an environment that supports black people, and it's not an environment that looks to enrich black people. Yes, you will have a job, but don't expect to have that job for long. So that's one of the things I learned about the whole dark part of this whole corporate America, working the jobs that I did. And I want black people to be able to survive out here. And the whole thing is, you have to have your head on straight. You have to have your head on a swivel. You can't get emotionally invested in these companies, because these companies aren't invested in you. And because they're not invested in you, you have to understand that you can be shown the door at any time, and you have to be prepared to be kicked out of that door at any time. I mean, back in 2008, I thought that job at the City College of New York was going to be a job I would have for years. I did not expect to be out of that job by October, and I didn't expect that people would go out here and be the way that they were. And now that I know about that whole corporate environment, and whether it be civil service or any part of corporate America, none of these jobs want a black man on the job, and they don't really want black women on the job. They'll tolerate black women in order to meet their diversity quota and keep up their facade. But at the end of the day, they will show them the door as fast as they show a black man if he goes out here and is looking to just do things like empower himself or even speak up for himself. Because one of the reasons why the bootlegs stay around is because these sniveling cowards will do anything to stay in their job, and they'll throw other black people under the bus to keep their job. So I hope that this video helps out the brother who wanted me to speak on blacks in corporate America. But when it comes down to those few blacks that are in corporate America, they are not your allies. Some of these people are your enemies, and some of these people, they will pretend to be your friend, but they will stab you in the back. So you have to understand, again, you are behind enemy lines, and because you are behind enemy lines, You have to put yourself first, and you have to put a plan together in order for yourself to survive out here, because you cannot depend on this job. You can't depend on the people at this job, and you can't trust anyone at this job, because anyone at this job could be the one that leads to you being out of that job. Now, if you want to request that I make a video and I know something about the subject, you can send a donation to the PayPal or the Patreon or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to learn more about how to avoid workplace predators, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find Stop Simping in the Workplace at Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.